Come and see, come and see, come and see. You wanna be, you wanna be, you wanna be. You wanna be in the light. Come and see, come and see, come and see. Come and see, come and see, come and see. You wanna be, wanna be, wanna be. You wanna be the light. But don't you wanna be? But don't you wanna be the light?
Greetings. Welcome to this episode of the Be the Light podcast. I'm Marilyn.
And I'm Melissa.
And we're glad you're joining us.
Today we're going to be spending some time talking about something that's very exciting to us, which is lithotherapy, the practice of using stones and crystals for healing.
What is lithotherapy? How does it work? What is it going to do for me? We run into it all the time with our practice, that most people come in here and they may have never even thought about picking up a stone to work with. Then we have clients who've always been attracted, just like we have been, as children, sparkly, pretty crystals and stones, or you're on your travels and you pick up a rock because it means something, it has significance to you. But I think most people would think that that's an emotional connection and maybe not really realizing all these other things that are at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a continuum of that, of people who are either have no clue, never thought about it, or people who've always been attracted to it but have no knowledge as to why they like stones. I mean, my mom is the perfect example of that. My mother, my 83-year-old mother, my whole life, would always want to have some kind of rock or stone. We had big agates and petrified wood, and she might get a quartz cluster or have carvings out of alabaster. And out at the farm, it was really rocky, jippy land out there. And one year, my dad, when he was plowing the field, found this beautiful, large, naturally heart-shaped pink gypsum rock that to this day is at her front door. I know. It's the most precious thing ever. I think he found that for her maybe in 1989. I mean, a long time ago. It was really sweet. So here's my mom, who has no clue about what it is, but yet you're going to learn today, our beloved listeners, if you've been attracted to stones and you don't know why, you're going to start putting these pieces together, because we're going to kind of fill that in for you today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are really unsure of how to incorporate or begin to really incorporate stones into their lives as healing tools. So we're excited to get to share and just break it down for you, make it real
Very
simple.
We're going to give you the
super fun.
We're not going to go too in depth. Well, let's just start really quickly. Lithotherapy, let's just break down the definition of what it is, okay? It is a vibrational healing modality, energetic healing modality that is both rooted in ancient wisdom and the scientific principle of entrainment of vibrational frequency. That's it in its simplest form. Because everything, as we all know, has a vibrational frequency. Everything. And all these different vibrational frequencies of every type of matter in the universe is going to have a dominant oscillatory rate, the DOR. And the coolest thing about crystals and minerals and stones, and by the way, we use those terms interchangeably. Crystals and minerals and stones have an unwavering vibrational frequency. Their DOR does not waver. It would take something extremely, immensely powerful that's not going to happen with you working with them to knock them out of their vibrational frequency state. So what is this vibrational frequency based on with the stones? A crystal or mineral's vibrational frequency, their dominant oscillatory rate, is going to be based upon, one, the chemical composition of the stone. Number two, the internal crystalline lattice structure of it. every type of mineral has its own unique internal crystalline structure. And then the third element of its vibrational frequency is its color. So that we know that these three things come together and create that stone's unique vibrational frequency. So as human beings, we're extremely dynamic. We've got our physical bodies, our emotional bodies, our mental, our spiritual. We have all of these different systems at work.
Even within our own physical bodies,
Yes.
everything is vibrating
Right.
at different rates. There's so many different components to our physical bodies.
I know. Just how your organs are working together, your muscles,
Blood,
your
bone.
blood.
All of it.
Yeah. Everything in it. All of the neurological activity. I mean,
The
my
electrical
gosh, it's literally you have
impulses.
your own
I know.
electrical impulse system in there. Come on. So we deal with a lot of stress as human beings in this world. And when this stress is, I would say, probably the predominant cause of entropy in human beings, stress on the body, stress on the mind, stress on the spirit. We have this beautiful natural element that the earth has given us in the form of crystals and minerals. So what happens when you put this steady, unwavering vibrational frequency in the field of something that is chaotic or erratic, or it's in the state of entropy? That chaotic vibrational frequency, and we're basing this on a principle of entrainment. The theory of entrainment being that for humans, our vibrational frequency will either rise or lower itself to meet the steady vibrational frequency of what it's put into its field. And in this case, we're talking about stones and minerals. So when you have this common period of these vibrational frequencies together, it creates a much more optimal environment for healing to begin happening. Even though this is a very subtle, energetic modality, when you're able to entrain to that frequency of the stone, some really radical healing can take place. I mean, it's a pretty amazing modality that human beings have been working with since the beginning of the beginning. Once again, we're going to bring it back to Graham Hancock and this, beautiful human being on the leading edge of trying to explain to people that this earth is way older. There have been
Civilizations have risen and fallen
over millennium of way before. I mean, like, what we know is nothing.
Tens of thousands,
Literally
hundreds
Jon
of
Snow.
thousands.
Yes. When we got started in researching the history of lithotherapy, because once again, we're nerds and we love to research stuff like that, and it's exciting. We just made so many fascinating discoveries that you can't make it up. It's been going on and on and on. So nobody is talking about the 40,000-year-old chert and hematite mine in Bulgaria.
It would be quite an undertaking to have this kind of a mine
Think
40,000 years
yeah.
ago, where they were extracting hematite and chert and using it to, they had these elaborate smelting operations, and there have been so many mines where they have found all kinds of extensive lapidary equipment.
Making beads
where they were
tens of thousands of years before they should have been able to make a bead. I mean, that's like hard word, making a bead. You have to have a big chunk of rough stone to get down and polish down to make a bead.
Just the tools alone that it would take.
I can't even imagine like how that long that would have taken, or how they would have done that, in what way. But once again, see, it's this idea of like anything in the past, anything that was ancient would have had to have been like very rudimentary or basic, and we're so full of ourselves, right? I mean, it's ridiculous to think that. Like, give me a break. I think it's incredible when you think about Neanderthals mining red ochre.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. What are you doing with red ochre? Are you painting with it? Probably painting something. Yeah. So
we're making some extensive, beautiful cave paintings in
exactly
France,
Spain. That whole area is full of it.
Full of beautiful art.
Well, I think it's quite impressive when you think about that. So I'm like, that's only what we've discovered, and it'll be shortly that there will be another discovery, and that record's gonna be pushed back even further. And the point is, next to flint, sure, it's going to be a pretty good thing to be able to cut with, to utilize to fashion any kind of arrows or whatever out of it. I mean, there's lots of uses for chert. But when you get into having beads, you're wearing that. You're adorning your body with that. There's some knowing the power and the importance of having a stone next to you. And it's not just ornamentation. Then, of course, if we fast forward from Sumeria to Babylonia, anywhere in Mesopotamia, moving into Egyptians, people used stones and minerals. I mean, the mineral makeup collection of Egyptian men and women alone, holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, from lapis lazuli to malachite. Now, they didn't quite know the dangers of using galena for eyeliner.
Which is full of lead.
It's some lead poisoning is happening. And
I bet it took them a while to figure that out.
It probably did.
Because that's a slow
death from eyeliner. So think about that when you're doing your eyes next time. Think about how close that is to such a mucousy part of your body to soak it in. Lead poisoning.
Say that word again, please. Mucousy.
Well, what would you rather me say?
Moist.
Oh, God, please.
Delicate.
Ugh. I can handle moist. Some people have a real aversion to that word, which I never really knew until recently.
Maybe if you were putting it that close to your eyeball, it wouldn't be a slow, painful death. Maybe they were able to discover that pretty quickly. But I'm sure there were a lot of makeup casualties.
I don't know that I would want malachite or lapis on my eyes either, to be quite honest, when they're pulverized like that. But this is where makeup started. Not just the juice of a choke cherry or a berry or something for rouge or a little lip color, but actually utilizing minerals in that way.
No one did eye makeup like the Egyptians. Let's just call it what it is.
You want to get an eyeliner? You get an ancient Egyptian makeup artist. And not only that, we can look at all of the sacred items that you would find in an Egyptian tomb.
Yes.
The sarcophaguses alone are covered in all kinds of precious jewels and gemstones and minerals.
And very much aligned. I mean, especially in the headpieces.
Absolutely.
Very much aligned with things that we now know would be something that you would use for greater intuition and connection to all that is and heart expansion. So, I mean, of course, people in positions of power and leadership would want those stone allies on their body and around them at all times.
I mean, sometimes I just get lost in imagining at what point did humans even figure out how to even find these things? Isn't that an interesting thing to think about?
Well, I'm sure that the Earth looked very different back then.
Oh, it did.
So there's no way to tell. We'd be basing it on our own perspective.
Exactly. And where's that going to get you? So we can establish without a shadow of a doubt that all over so many different cultures, people, places on the planet have utilized stones and minerals for healing, for adornment, for connectivity to spirit, of course, for utilitarian purposes. In ancient China, during the 1100s, you want to know where those awesome shades that you're wearing on your face, who really honed that, were these ancient Chinese judges. And they did not want people to see their eyes when they were interrogating them. So they had sunglasses sliced and fashioned from Smoky Quartz. Now, for any of our mineral friends out there, Chinese smoky quartz can be
It's
really
very
dark. And it was so clever. I would love some smoky quartz sunglasses. Yes,
Me
please.
too.
I mean, my God, the Chinese were way ahead of clearly what we're seeing in other parts at this particular time in history during that time period of the early part of the 12th century. They utilized a stone library for people to come and check out stones to assist them for their healing, which was the coolest thing because we had already made our own stone library here at the cottage for our
Yes.
clients for the same reason. And when we learned about that practice and that they actually had them, because, you know, your regular person who is not royalty or of the upper classes or anything, they're not going to get a ruby, but they can go get a red jasper.
Yeah.
That is going
And
to
just check it out.
and you check it out and use it until you're feeling better, solving the problem.
Bring it back when you're done.
Bring it back when you're done. They don't have
When
to
they've
be
done the work.
when they've done
you
the
can
work.
bring it back.
I think it's a great idea.
I think
ours
yeah,
is
it's
just
incredible.
a small. I mean, it's stone libraries.
Well, in addition to that, there are mentions of stones and crystals in so many sacred texts. We know that in Hindu texts, they make references to stones and crystals in the Quran. And the book that I'm probably most familiar with from my upbringing, the Bible, refers to stones and crystals hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times.
The story that I think is so fascinating personally, and I remembered thinking that it was really interesting when I was little and we learned about it in Catholic school, was the story about the breastplate of Aaron.
Oh yeah.
So the story is that God instructed Moses to make this breastplate for Aaron. And it was supposed to have 12 specific stones that represented the 12 tribes of Israel. And Aaron was supposed to wear it whenever the tribes were gathering and got together and were making decisions. It's incredible, really. There's been a lot of people that have tried to figure out, based on just what stones were in the area, the exact stones. I mean, I think they're pretty certain of the colors of the stones, and there's been some guesses as to what the stones are, but it's really beautiful. Just another representation of the importance, or how people felt about utilizing stones in such a sacred and holy way. I'm just going to say that I would love to sit and talk to God about how exactly he picked the 12 stones to represent the 12 tribes. And I'm sure it was based on the vibrational frequency,
Right.
what they meant, how they handled themselves.
Right.
You know,
How they corresponded to each one of those stones would be everything.
I mean, it's basically taking that energy of the stone and representing an entire group of people, or the
Right.
energy of a group of people vibrationally matched to that stone. You know what I mean? It's just really fascinating.
Assigned by God.
Right. I mean, to me, knowing what I know about stones and having used them for many, many, many years, it makes total sense.
Absolutely, it does.
And, you know, I think that the word protection was also used, that, you know, these were sacred and holy and were supposed to protect the 12 tribes.
I also believe that in the scripture of the purpose specifically of Aaron's, there was also an element of it being worn to determine judgment of behavior. It's the breastplate of the high priest, of the highest of the high, you know, that's going to be able to do that. So, like, I'm always kind of curious, what happened to the breastplate of Aaron? Where did it go? You know, I mean,
It ran off with the Holy Grail, and the other thing. What's
Did
the other
Indiana
thing from
Jones-
Raiders of the Lost Ark? What's that
would
thing?
be the Lost Ark,
The Lost Ark.
the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant.
Basically,
Which takes us back to Grammy Cocktails. Once
it back to
again,
Graham Hancock.
because he thought he found it in
He did.
Ethiopia.
It
That's
was
how
in
he.
Africa.
That's how
That's
he
what he went
ended
on
up.
to go find it. And
That's
he heard
how
it was
he
there.
ended up getting into doing what he's
I
doing.
know. He
was from
wasn't
that
even-
trip as a journalist.
Right.
So anyway, the breastplate of Aaron, the Holy Grail, and the Ark of the Covenant are all.
They're in
In
a
a bar.
warehouse that the government is holding on to. Indiana Jones is real. It was not a fictional movie. It's more like a documentary.
Well, let's not get started on the crystal skulls.
Oh, well, we left that one out.
again. Hidden
on
in
purpose.
plain sight.
Hidden in plain sight in, a Mayan temple.
But we digress.
We have digressed completely, but that's okay because we're going to bring it back around because the other thing when you're thinking about the history of lithotherapy, and most people don't make this connection because they do think crowns are pure adornment. Crowns came around in the beginning as a connection with the divine, as a connection with heaven.
Even if it was just made of metal.
Right. And as things progressed, stones were utilized. There's all kinds of very old and ancient crown pieces. And always, just like we were talking about with the Egyptians, it correlates. Those stones would be utilized for that type of connection with the divine anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Also stones to have fairness. There was a lot of intent.
Right. And you're putting it around your head, which is the seat of your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
your dream states,
Mm-hmm.
your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and your brain.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, let's talk about Saint Hildegard because Saint Hildegard is near and dear to your heart.
Yes, we
it
love
on.
Saint Hildegard. We were more than thrilled to find out that there was a patron saint of lithotherapy.
For real.
I mean,
that was the coolest thing ever. Like,
we had a big party.
we did, and we celebrated her. We created Saint Hildegard Feast Day.
And had a big potluck dinner, which is really cool. I think
It
we
was
did that
very cool.
twice. Did we do it 2 years in a row?
I think we did it 2 years in a row.
I love it. I think we missed it the last year, but maybe we'll bring it back this year. But Saint Hildegard von Bingen,
Mm-hmm.
born in 1098 in Germany. And she had some special gifts that her parents didn't quite know what to do with. And I'm talking clairvoyance, clairaudience. She
was
at
a-
the time you would have called it a
A
mystic.
mystic.
She was a seer, and she had full 5 sense visions, which means they included all 5 senses, which
Right.
is pretty amazing.
Her parents were kind of concerned.
And so when she was very small, they sent her away to be raised in a small forest cottage by a woman named Jutta, who was a nun. And basically it was just the two of them living alone in this cottage. So Jutta taught her how to read and write and meditate. But she taught herself how to play the psaltery, and she composed all kinds of beautiful musical compositions that were haunting. Lots of chanting, lots of singing in these musical compositions.
Very unusual key signatures and tempos.
Yes, and her music always reflected what other people would consider maybe the mysteries of the world and the connection to the divine. And she seemed to have this real deep knowing of how things worked. So at the age of 42, God specifically asked her to write down the visions that she was having and to write them down and write a book. So she started, and the first book took her about 10 years to write. So that's a pretty long time.
Well, come on, think about it. They're handwriting that stuff in manuscript form. And it's such an intense, in-depth volume. I mean, there's just a lot of denseness of material.
Right,
in that book.
especially when you realize that she's talking about creation, the structure of the universe, the connection between the body and the soul. She was talking about some deep stuff in her first book. It's like any channeled book now, right? God was telling St. Hildegard what to write in these visions, and she was giving it to the public.
Right.
Then her book, Physica, the next book that she wrote, the one that we think is deeply exciting, is where she really pinpoints specifically using things in the natural world for healing. And she was trying to get the word out that everything that can be found on the earth can be used for the healing of human beings. And that included plants, stones and minerals, all kinds of herbs. She was really kind of like the mother of holistic healing too, or at least the spokesperson.
Truly.
I mean, I know that herbal remedies have been around for forever, but she certainly wrote them all down. She, in this book, stated that minerals and crystals were formed from fire and water,
right,
which is pretty rudimentary, but it's very
heat
true.
And water and very true.
Yes.
You know? So she wasn't wrong.
She was not wrong.
Without being a geologist and digging into the ground herself, she had this knowing. She had received this knowledge and put it out into the world through this book.
Yeah. So in Physica, she gives really detailed information about putting stones directly on the body.
Right.
And using them for healing, and she describes the different ailments and what stone to use. So it's actually really, really cool. And this was in the 1100s.
So I think that's an interesting point to bring up, because at some point people want to know, well, how do you know what stones do what? And we understand and will relay this to people because it's based on, of course, experience. But if you also look, it all goes back and back and back. And this is another, just, we cannot exalt Saint Hildegard enough because of her work and writing it out.
Well, and she was so revered.
Revered.
I mean, the Pope.
Kings would seek her consult to have her.
Well, and part of it was because the Pope gave her the stamp of approval,
right.
and she went and visited with the Pope, and the Pope basically said, "Yes,
you have my blessing.
Your visions are from God, and
yes.
I want you to keep writing books, and I want you to get the information out there." And she was like a public speaker. I mean, she went from country to country, traveling around, giving lectures. A woman in the 1100s,
right?
You know, talking about some pretty interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some pretty controversial stuff.
And you don't hear about her very much. Ask any, come on. Did you know who she was as a Catholic?
Never heard of her.
Right.
Well, she was only canonized in
she was
2012.
In 2012.
Which it took him a really long time, considering the fact that she died in
11. She died in 1179.
It took him a while. Come on, Catholic Church.
A minute. Come on, give me a break. Well, she is a woman, and we'll just leave that there. Another reason why it's important for us to discuss the history is just to be able to give people a bit of a panoramic view.
This isn't some new age thing that came around in the 60s.
No, nobody's throwing some blue beads on you and telling you that it's all okay. No, this practice of using lithotherapy it's been around since the beginning. And what's been the cool thing is now we're at a place because of the scientific principles that exist today in our modern day and age, that we have become much more deeply aware of how it works from this perspective: vibrational frequency, entrainment, and being able to have an understanding of electromagnetic fields. Semyon Kirlian in 1939 accidentally, because most great things that are discovered just are not intentional, discovered his format, as some people may be aware of Kirlian photography. Maybe some people are, some people aren't. But it's a really cool way to be able to capture the movement of energy.
Right, through a picture.
Right. Basically, what happened is him having being able to put a crystal on these photographic plates and running a powerful electrical charge through it is how you capture and see, one, the energy that it exists, and two, how it's moving.
Right.
And this becomes an important element when you're beginning to work, especially with crystals. You know, we welcome anybody that, you know, has a lab and wants to test this out and to see about reproducing this or being able to produce these results that we're talking about today. Bring it on, man. Bring it on. Make it happen. But we know this to be true through our practice of utilizing stones for healing.
Well, and you can present me with all the scientific evidence in the world. I don't particularly need scientific proof to know whether or not something works. And
Right.
I know from my own personal experience that it does work.
Absolutely. People wouldn't, and let's just go, people would not be using this from the beginning of time if it didn't work, if there wasn't validity to it, whether we understand exactly how it all works in a way that's quantifiable in a lab. You know, you and I are both like that. And then there are people who are always going to be like, you know, hey, show me. Okay,
Right.
well, take these stones home and work with them for a week and come back and tell me how you feel. Let's do it like that. Let's just do some sort of empirical evidence of your own experience.
Well, but people don't think that that's valid.
But it is valid, because at the end of the day, the funny thing is we can talk about how this foundation of it works, of lithotherapy based on entrainment, vibrational frequency, the history and all these things. But really what it culminates in, what it really gets to is how we have a relationship with stones, how we're connecting with them is through our consciousness.
Right. So, I mean, in classic Marilyn and Melissa style, and we always like to reference The Alchemist. I'm going to bring it up once again.
It's truly a thing.
But it's true. We started with the knowing that stones work
Right.
because out of a sheer act of desperation
Right.
and a set of synchronistic events where the stones presented themselves at the exact moment that they
like
needed
with
to
all
for
teachers,
physical healing.
when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
So we already believed it because we already experienced the truth of the healing, the physical healing that can take place, energetic healing, so many things.
And in our Western culture, we have this weird mentality about we're not going to bring in any alternative forms of healing until you're about to die. If there's nothing left in the Western medicine cabinet to do to you, then you can bring in your acupuncture, your Reiki, your stones.
That's changing though.
But we have witnessed in a very short amount of time how that shift is happening.
And
Because
it's very exciting.
you cannot deny radical transformational healing when it happens. What happens when you're scheduled to get a tumor removed and you've been doing work with stones and Reiki and you go back and there's no more tumor? You know? And it's happening all the time. But for us, and for anybody who's lived with any kind of chronic pain or chronic illness, something that you're in so much pain, you cannot remember what it feels like to feel normal. And for us, Melissa tends to pave the way on some certain avenues in our dynamic, in our relationship. And she definitely did with this. You were really the first one that was presented with some very dire physical straits, situations. We get to a place where we incorporate things just because we're willing to be like, okay, well, what could it hurt? I'm being guided to do this. I'm just going to try it out. And lo and behold, what ends up happening is we have this relationship for physical healing with stones, but the really cool thing that begins to happen is all the other doors with other aspects of the self that get to be opened up with utilizing and having relationships with stones. I mean, your stones become your best friends in the sense that they know you, they know your energy, they know your frequency, and they're going to always be there. They are your stalwart allies. I know when I have my stones that I've used for years. I have a piece of malachite, my very first big piece I have. That stone literally saved my life. I mean, I'm not going to get into my personal retelling of that right now, but it did. It saved my life. And I will always have the utmost gratitude and reverence and love for that stone because it was unwavering. Right? It not only is the vibrational frequency unwavering, but it was unwavering and steadfast in what it was going to do for me. And we can feel really attached to stones in a way that people may not have context for. And they're like, I don't know, I just don't want you touching it, or I don't want you doing this, or I don't let anybody. Well, that's fine. There's a reason for that.
Going back to what you were saying about how do people know what stones are used for or what to use them for? A lot of this is brought through ancient wisdom. A lot of it has been passed down from generation to generation and through texts and all kinds of ways. But I think it's important to say that each person is going to have their own unique experience with a stone.
Absolutely.
And you can use these. There's lots of books, they're written by different people. So everyone kind of has a different idea of what stones correspond with, certain physical or mental, emotional, spiritual ailments, let's just say. But you are going to, just by working with your stones, you're going to develop your own unique relationship with that stone. And you are going to discover the things that it does for you. And it may not do that for everybody.
Right.
That's something unique and special because you're marrying basically two vibrational frequencies.
Right.
And your vibrational frequency is unique. And when you start working with a stone, you may have completely different experiences that you could write a book about.
Oh, well, we know that from our own personal experience of how we relate to stones individually.
Yes, and you may find and discover that they do all kinds of other things for you that you're not finding in a book. And that's pretty cool, and it's amazing.
If you go down this, want to explore this more in your own life, and we've got books that we recommend. You can go to our website. We've got all of our recommended material as far as stones go. You will see commonalities amongst things for physical healing. And when you see common denominators emerge amongst a variety of writers and people who are speaking to these qualities of the stones, that's always a good sign too, especially if you don't know what stones to go to. And say you are taking the approach of, I am trying to work on X, Y, and Z with my physical health. So I'm going to look into what might be the best stone for me to do that with. And in doing that, you will begin to see that there is commonality amongst a lot of different things. So
and we still come across some really unique physical issues that people are having that we know nothing about,
and didn't realize what stones to be able to incorporate.
Right.
And we also know that when you're working with crystals, what we recommend when we're talking to our clients about this is you ultimately need to be listening to yourself. This goes back to something we've talked about, and I think in our last episode, that importance of having that internal bond with your higher self, so the messages and your guidance is clear on what you should be working with.
Don't ever deny what stones and crystals you're being guided to pick for yourself. It's very important. You don't always have to know why, And hopefully you can get to the point where you just won't even question it at all. And you're just being intuitively guided because you have such a strong relationship with yourself and a strong relationship with the mineral kingdom.
Exactly.
Because you're connecting with a consciousness.
Exactly.
You're connecting with a conscious
And the
being.
consciousness of that stone is going to understand your consciousness.
Yes.
It's a two-way street
And
there.
you're developing a friendship, a relationship.
You are.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't. It's like dealing with people. Sometimes you can feel instantly connected to another human being and you're just like, where have you been my whole life? And then other times, maybe you have to be around them a few times. You're just not quite connecting with them. And then all of a sudden they may just say something, or you might just out of the blue find a point of connection and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. I get you now.
Yeah.
I understand what we're doing. And it can be like that with your minerals. It absolutely can.
Yes.
I mean, I know for physical healing, there were stones that I had in that bag for working with my issues that I was not ever drawn to, but I also knew the power of what those properties were and why my physical vessel needed that frequency in there. So you're developing new relationships when you're choosing to work with stones. Sometimes you're going to work with certain stones for a certain amount of time, and that journey is done. That relationship is complete, and you'll
know it.
And you'll know it. With that being said, this would be a good time to talk about some practical elements of lithotherapy and bringing that into your own personal life, into your, your routine of what you're doing on a daily basis. And there is a group of stones we affectionately refer to as the essentials. And the reason why we call these the essentials is because each one of these stones is serving a very broad function.
Like if you could only have 5 stones,
right,
these would be the ones because they're covering all the bases. They're affordable, they're easy to get,
right,
invaluable.
These stones are going to be black tourmaline, smoky quartz, amethyst, rose quartz, and a quartz point. There's 5. Black tourmaline is a grounding, transmuting, protection stone.
With these chaotic times that
we're
a lot of
living in.
people are experiencing, where there's just a lot of chaotic energy right now in the world, and people still have to go out in the world.
People are getting up and having to drive and commute to work and to do the grind and having to deal with difficult situations or stress or anything that is going to be making you feel stressed out.
And having black tourmaline in your field or near your body really helps transmute that chaotic energy and brings it into balance and harmony.
It's going to get your whole being into a neutral position, and it is extremely protective and grounding. It's a very calming stone. If anybody's ever feeling any type of anxiousness or worry, if you're holding onto a piece of black tourmaline, you are going to truly, within a matter of moments, feel like all the gears have shifted, and you're going to feel way more calm and internally centered. So it's a valuable stone to have. Smoky quartz. That's another amazing stone for protection.
Not just used for sunglasses.
Not just for sunglasses.
In the 1100s.
When we're talking about these stones, they're going to come in a variety of forms. You can get polished pieces. You can get rough pieces. You can get terminated quartz pieces and smoky quartz, or maybe it's just easier and more affordable for you to have a polished piece. That's okay too. It's still doing its job. It's still going to be assisting you. Amethyst is also a beautiful protection stone. It's also a stone to be connecting you with all that is, source, divine, God, whatever term you want to call spirit. It's a great stone for clarity. It's also another great stone for being centered. It's a high vibrational stone. We would call it
very soothing and peaceful.
But it's very
stone.
soothing and peaceful. It's very calming. I mean,
That's what everyone needs now.
People need to calm down.
People do need to calm down.
Calm down, because these are definitely tumultuous times that we are finding ourselves in, and everybody needs to have some serenity, some grounding, some calming. Serenity now. Rose quartz.
The love
sweetest.
Stone.
The sweetest. The love stone. Your heart.
Yeah. It just exudes love. It's pink. It's beautiful. It's quartz. It's amplifying this energy of love.
I would also
the
say
frequency
it's calming.
of love. Mm-hmm.
It's very soothing. It's a soothing stone.
It is amplifying a frequency of love.
Absolutely.
It's turning the dial up on the love frequency.
It is.
And you feel the love when you are holding a piece of rose quartz
Just
or
lay
looking
down and
at
put it on your chest,
even just looking at it.
Right. Hold it in your hand.
Yeah.
The quartz point, boy, there's not a human that doesn't love a piece of quartz.
Jack of all trades.
It is definitely the Lunsa of the mineral world, in the sense that it's going to amplify whatever it's around. Clear quartz, keep that in mind. It's just going to amplify if you don't program it with an intention. It is a programmable mineral, the quartz is. So it likes to have a job to do.
You can also use it to amplify the vibrational frequency of other stones.
Absolutely.
So if you're wanting to, say, give your black tourmaline a boost or your rose quartz, you can put your quartz next to it.
There's a variety of reasons why we recommend having a quartz point, but above all else, it's that it's going to amplify the frequency of all of the other stones that you have. So just starting with those, you cannot go wrong. That's your essentials. That's your toolkit. People talk about cleaning stones when you get them and doing these things.
There's lots of information on practices for cleaning stones. Our perspective, once again, was discovered when we got really into sound healing and using sound tools. And because we see clients and there's a turnover, we need a quick way to kind of
very efficient way
clear the stones, and so we began using sound to clean stones. Right. So either using a singing bowl or tuning forks or chimes. If in a pinch, you can use the sound of your own voice.
Just tone. You can hold it in your hand and tone into it.
You can even, sometimes I feel drawn to actually put it right on my throat, and
to feel
I can feel the whole thing vibrating. We tend to clean stones right when we get them because we don't know where they've been and what they've been through, and we're kind of wanting to think of it like it's a reset button. You're hitting a reset button. You're kind of trying to reset it back to its DOR, and
its original frequency.
You are, in a ritualistic way, stating you and I are going to be working together, and in honor of that connecting of the consciousness of you and the stone.
And so when you first get stones, that's when you want to clean them. After the initial cleaning, there really is no need to clean your stones again if they are for your personal use. You're developing a relationship with these minerals. There is a lot to be said after you've been working with the stone very intently and intensely, that from our perspective and in our opinion, if you're going to clean that stone after you've been working with it like that, with the exception of the quartz point, it would be like erasing the memory of a good friend and starting over, because that's what's going to happen when you reset it with sound. And
I know that for me, there's probably been one other time where I felt guided, really guided to reset my stones. Yeah. It is not our belief system that stones hold negative energy and need to be cleaned all of the time. because we do believe that you're developing a relationship and you would not want to erase the memory of your best friend and have to have it be like Groundhog Day and starting over every day.
Right. And like you said, that's our belief system. People, of course, have been drawn to be cleansing. And I'm also going to go ahead and throw it in there right now, charging your stones according to phases of the moon, according to special times of the year. And to that, we say, always do what you feel guided to do. The only caveat I would say to that is please understand what minerals that you are putting outside under the full moon or the new moon, because some things don't like to get wet. And some stones don't like to be in direct sunlight. Mm-hmm. And we mean this from a very practical, geological perspective of what can happen to a mineral in these types of conditions.
You want to make sure and know that your stones aren't going to fade. The color isn't going to fade.
If you've got a piece of Swiss quartz or Swiss fluorite, you really want to be careful about having that in direct sunlight. Those minerals are formed under such extreme pressures that if they are exposed to a lot of direct sunlight, they can crack. I mean, it's especially with fluorite, Swiss fluorite.
We don't want you to have any stone friend casualties.
Right. No need for casualties.
Halite, which is basically
a salt crystal. So if you put it out in the full moon, you're going to wake up to a puddle of salt water is what you're going to wake up to.
So just know what stones you're taking outside. Occasionally, I feel like some of my stone friends want to go outside in the sun or just to be on the ground.
Yes.
And I'll take them outside. I try not to forget that they're out there and intend to go out after a certain period of time to retrieve them so that they're not out all night.
Right.
But that's a beautiful thing. These are all kind of ritual practices that you can do with your stones too once you get to know them, you know, especially having them in the sun, absorbing all that, those photonic light codes, and light is information. And you know, having your stones and crystals, if they want to go outside in the sunlight, is really beautiful because, you know, especially quartz, I would think, would be taking that all in as information, and then you put it on your body, and it, you know, continues the transmission, which is really beautiful. So, what are some of the things you do with your stones?
You know, I'm like you. There are times that I really feel guided to have them out in the sun. There used to be a time years ago that I really incorporated my stones into my moon rituals. Definitely during certain times of the year, whether that's the equinox, these natural rites of passage. I used to feel very compelled to do that. I, in full disclosure, do not feel like that. I don't feel like that anymore. I haven't in a really long time put any stones out in the moon. I
haven't either.
I just haven't. And I can reflect upon my own journey and feel like that's just because we're transcending into new paradigms once again. And that, as with all things, we do what we feel guided and what we feel is in resonance with where we are. There are times that I do feel like having them outside in the sun. I also drive around in my car, and I have in my little cubby on my dash.
Yes, you have a lot of stones.
I have a lot of stones up there that are really important to me, and it started off with having my protection, my essentials, if you will. I've got a couple of pieces of Smoky Quartz with black tourmaline on it that they've grown together. My amethyst quartz point that I have, a cluster. I have a cactus quartz, aka spirit quartz. That's a clear one. Originally, it started out as that, but then other friends decided they wanted to come along. And of course, I have my rose rocks up there because to me, that's really representative of where I come from in this lifetime, from Oklahoma, because rose rocks are found on 2 places on the entire planet, here in Oklahoma and in Israel. That's a visual reminder for myself. With that being said, here in Oklahoma in the summertime, I have to have my sunshade up in my windshield because it gets really, really hot. And I worry about certain things happening,
Like starting a fire.
like starting a fire.
Your car just goes up in flames.
It could happen.
It
It's
could
like
happen.
it's like when you point
We
the sun
didn't-
underneath the
we
magnifying glass.
Made a grid once.
We made a grid and it burned.
and it was starting to smoke.
It was starting to smoke. So that's a real thing. And I don't want my car to blow up. Okay. And I leave the window cracked to make sure there's some airflow. But I have lots of stones now on there. I've got a piece of tugtapite up
It is
there.
like your
I've got
little
my
shrine.
malachite. I've
And
got my astrophyllite. I've
Speaking
got
of
iolite.
visual reminders, I think it's important, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about last podcast, which is that it is really important. I mean, stones do so many things. And
Right.
one of the cool things that they do is to act as a visual reminder of your spiritual path.
Totally.
A visual reminder of like switching gears, and you see them and you just feel that connection and the love, or you're reminded of what it is that you're working with them
Right.
on, whatever issues it is that you're tackling together.
Oh, yeah. I've got some people out there that just, they love seeing this crystals.
I have yet to meet a person that says, I hate crystals and
I
stuff.
know. We've met some people who've been indifferent.
Yeah, there's been quite a few people that are indifferent. They just don't know that they love stones yet.
That's really what it is. They just don't know yet because it never occurred to them. And then they come here and they're like, oh my God, I need stones. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Wait, welcome. Wait, yeah,
And
we're
even
glad
if you
you're here.
think you don't, we're going to give you some just
We're
to
gonna
try
get you
them
some.
out.
Which goes back to the stone library. You know, that's what we would do with clients. Here, take these home. Work with them.
Yeah.
Work
If
with
you
them
don't
for the
want
next
them,
month.
bring them back.
Bring him back. Well, the joke was on us because people fell in love with him and they kind of kept him sometimes. A lot of people brought him back, but some people kept him. And that was okay. You know, what are you going to do? It's not like
Totally.
you got a bookie that's going to run you down. Like, you know, bring in the muscle to go get the stones. Like a collector.
Maybe we should hire The Rock.
We need the repo man.
The
We need
Rock.
the Rock. We need the Rock. We'd rather have the Rock or Chris Rock. You can fucking keep Kid Rock because he ain't gonna do shit. But I would take Chris Rock would go get the stones and the Rock. Dwayne and Chris would go get the stones.
Go get the rocks for sure.
I know. You're right. So we don't employ those methods. Nobody's getting shook down for the stones. But it's
No, because we're always happy when the stones are being loved and treasured wherever they are.
Absolutely.
That's just
Yeah,
there's
and we
nothing
know
that's gonna
that,
give me a
right.
warm fuzzy
right.
than thinking about someone loving their stones.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because of the excitement that we feel about it.
Right.
And we know what that feels like.
And if you want to see some real excitement about stones, get your stones around a bunch of kids.
Oh, kids love stones.
Kids, you can't keep them away. When we've gone into classrooms, we've taken our show on the road.
It's total
taken
pandemonium.
They can't help themselves. The
We
teacher
haven't
has
really-
lost all control
we
of the
haven't
classroom.
really gotten it down
It's
yet
impossible.
because we
can't.
haven't keep absolute pandemonium from happening. The kids love the stones.
They cannot help themselves because
Give
they know
the kids
the
the
truth.
stones.
Give the kids the stones.
Give
And
your
so
kids stones.
if you've got kids who have trouble sleeping at night, they need a bag of sleep stones. Your kids have anxiety, we got a bag of stones for that.
There's
you
a
need
stone
help with
for
with
everything.
focus and clarity. Whatever it is in your life, in your world that you need assistance with, there is a stone for that. For you, your kids, your home,
your pets.
your pets, the cats and the dogs.
My little puppy, who has since walked on, got her wings. Saint Mango,
Saint Mango.
the eternal saint of unconditional love and light.
Precious angel.
She had some solar plexus issues. She was a high energy dog that,
Had a lot of control issues.
well, she was an Australian Shepherd. So
Right.
she was used to being pretty active and having something to do at all times. And when that couldn't happen exactly on her timetable, she kind of got a little mopey, and she would always, when I would do a chakra check on her, she would always have just a little, she'd have some solar plexus issues, which is where that power and control is seated, right?
And acceptance.
And I always had a piece of citrine and a yellow jasper
all
in
day
her
long.
water bowl. Now, I'm suggesting that, but I'm also going to tell you that you're really going to want to research what stones to put into water. You don't want anything toxic.
Right.
There's all kinds
you need to really
of information
have an
on the web.
understanding. Yeah, don't just willy-nilly go putting stones in water dishes or your own drinking glass until you have checked the toxicity of that mineral, because there are lots of minerals that are not safe for internal consumption. The jury is still out on me drinking that moonstone water for like a week.
I know. I think there was a difference.
Is that where my memory loss happened? Got a little early onset of
what's my
Alces.
excuse?
Really, what is your excuse? You didn't drink the moonstone water?
Remember when I briefly had that piece of amber in my water?
I drank amber until it was disappeared.
Mine was disappeared, but I didn't want it to be disappeared.
I didn't want it to be disappeared, but when
you're like, this thing has been around for
millions of years
and
in the rain, and you can't survive my water bottle
my chlorinated.
I mean, it didn't stop the moonstone from evaporating and me drinking a bunch of aluminum, did it? No.
Yeah, be
so
careful.
Check the toxicity.
You don't want to get, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to be making any gem
playing
elixirs.
Around with that, right? But make sure you look into it. There's tons of resources online to check out whether or not something is safe for internal consumption through some type of elixir that you would make by putting it in your water. Okay. However, with that being said, I think it's an excellent example of incorporating stones into different ways. I see people making wire wrap charms for their dogs' collars or for their cats. Now, cats are a little different, of course, because they're different beings, but
and your pet is you're going to know. I mean, Mango would run the other direction if you pointed a quartz point at her.
Oh, yeah, they're a little too sensitive.
She would flip out. So, I mean, I obviously wouldn't want to have that in her field anywhere. So, I mean, before you do any of these things, kind of get to know how your pet
experiment
feels.
On yourself first as well.
Right. Well, of course. I hope that goes without saying.
Well, I'm saying it, but yeah.
That brings us right to a beautiful place where I would like to talk about some helpful hints for using your stones. And this is some information that is on our website, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit here. So these are just some really fun ways that you can connect with your stones, practical ways that you can get to know the energy of your stones. So one of the fun things that we did when we first started using stones was getting a stone that you didn't really know anything about and having it with you and carrying it around for a few days and sleeping with it and really just shifting gears a little bit to see if you can tune in to how you felt, how your day was. What was it like when you came in contact with things that are known stressors? Did you have any unusual physical sensations? And really keep a journal of your experience with those stones.
Right.
Are you getting messages from your higher self? Is your intuition stronger? Yeah, definitely. What's happening in the dream state? Are you feeling more relaxed? Just lots of really cool ways to experiment. Sleeping with your stones every night. Sleeping with stones, you're literally laying there for 6 to 8 hours where those stones can be in your field and doing the heavy lifting while you're asleep. You don't even have to be awake. You don't even have to be doing anything.
How do you sleep with the stones? You put them in a bag.
That's the easiest way to keep them from rolling all over the place.
Right. You just put them in a bag and put them on the part of your body where you're wanting to be working with them. My bag, that was my sacral chakra bag of stones that I worked with for a couple of years, was a wool bag. It was a Pendleton wool bag that had a zipper on it. And it was the best bag because I knew rolling back and forth, it would be there right where I needed it to be. I would have a bag for my throat and I would place it next to my throat, and I know that it's going to be there. I'm not getting poked or anything like that.
Let's not forget about the third eye bands that Teal made us.
Teal, our intrepid producer, who's also a wizard.
He's also a stone lover.
He's a stone mineral lover, but he created these awesome headbands that had these little pockets for your third eye, and you could tuck it in there.
They were adjustable.
Adjustable.
For
Go
my
to
little
sleep at
head.
night. Don't even have to worry about that third eye stone.
It just stays right there.
Because I'm a side sleeper, so what I end up doing if I'm guided to work with a third eye stone for whatever reason, or I'm trying to connect with that energy, the consciousness of that mineral, I would be just tucking it under my head a little bit, right there in that third eye area, that zone. The headband, oh my God, it's so cool. It's so cool.
We often talk about developing all kinds of clothing that
want
it
a
has pockets
suit.
to put stones in.
I know, seriously. There needs to be like some underwear that has pockets for stones.
If anyone is listening, these are some $1 million ideas right now. We're just
You're
we're just
welcome.
handing them to
Just
you right
tossing
and
them
left.
out like free money.
Well, and remember Indigo,
Mm-hmm.
my oldest daughter, who works with children with autism.
yeah.
You know, always has wanted someone to create a blanket
A weighted
that has
blanket with
stones
stones in
in
it.
it.
Could you imagine
Like
a
some
black tourmaline?
I know.
A black tourmaline weighted blanket. We've talked about that one for years. That's
Once
really
again, more gold. Someone make it.
Make
Some
it-
of
make
you
it
awesome
happen.
people listening,
Right.
make this blanket.
make it because the world needs it. So we've got sleeping with your stones.
Yes.
We've got trying the exercise of picking a
Getting-
stone.
yeah. Getting to
You don't
know the
even know what it
energy.
is. What else you got?
Meditate with your stones. Now, stones are going to be doing a lot of things. If you already have a meditation practice, it can only be enhanced by adding stones if you feel guided during your meditation.
You can hold stones in your hand while you're doing your meditation. If you're lying down to meditate, which we recommend because people are a little bit more relaxed. But if you're laying down, you can put those stones on your third eye. You're not falling asleep and rolling over. So they're going to stay there on your heart, anywhere along your chakra system, basically, of course. And I would be saying whatever it is you're working on, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, incorporating those stones to those corresponding chakras that need to be balanced or energized or opened up. Bring them on there. Put them on there while you're meditating.
We've done all kinds of amazing exercises with people who have come for classes or private mentoring when we're talking about consciousness and crystals and how the interface for connecting with crystals is through your consciousness. And as we know, meditation is a huge part of that. So many things can happen. We've done all kinds of exercises of measuring the field
Oh, yeah.
of a crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Measuring
the
your
field.
own
Right.
auric field or etheric field, say
Uh-huh.
with copper rods, and just measuring where your energetic field ends. And then having people get into an aligned meditative state and holding a crystal where it's amplifying that frequency of peace and alignment. And oh my gosh,
The field is blown out.
It's
so
so
massive.
big we barely even can
You'd have
measure
to
it
go
without
2 yards over.
for real. And that's no joke.
That is no joke. We've had to do that. We're like, okay, we'll keep backing up, keep backing up. Well, now you're down the street.
Yeah.
So it's when you can do these fun little exercises and experiments yourself, all that's doing is just verifying for with your own eyes through your own experience what these stones and these crystals are
And
going to
your
do for you
intention.
and your intention, which as we know
If you needed
everything.
anything to verify what
Right.
your intention can do
And
and your
through-
own consciousness
right.
can do.
And through meditating, you're connecting your consciousness with the consciousness of the stone. All of these things begin to come together in such a profound way that I'm going to say from my own personal experience, it was undeniable what they were going to do. The depth, the scope, the intensity. Yeah. Clear as there's. Why wouldn't you be using them? You know, that's all. I mean, it's just like, yeah.
Well, It boggles the mind.
It does boggle the mind.
It definitely boggles my mind.
Boggles my mind. What else you got in your fun little bag of suggestions?
Keep a dream journal.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
If you weren't already, you definitely
And that can be an
want
audio
to,
diary.
because once you know what these stones do for you, then it's just like you're picking a tool to do a job. So I mean, if you know that whenever I use this stone, I have past life recall, or I dream about other lifetimes, or I'm getting this information, or I'm dreaming about that specific person and working with these types of issues. The next time you want to work on something like that, you want
You're
to
gonna
pick
reach
that,
for that
stone.
Absolutely.
And that's the beautiful thing about stones, is that you're really going to want to pay attention to how they're working with you. So keeping a dream journal, I know that definitely the relationship that you can have with your stones and how they affect your consciousness when you're in the sleep state, it just furthers your journey and your deeper connection to yourself, which in turn is going to have a huge impact on your daily life and how you see yourself, the love that you have for yourself, your connection to everything, to everybody, to all that is. I mean, it can only do amazing things.
It's only going to expand.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, having said that, I mean, there are some stones that can be some stern taskmasters.
There are stern taskmasters in the mineral.
In the realm of consciousness.
Yes, there is.
You may be exploring with a stone, and maybe, some things are brought to your awareness about yourself that you may not be so excited to see, but it's still equally as important.
Oh, totally.
If not more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's one stone, and I'll say the name of it for me. Well, it's blue barite that I keep hidden away in a box, and I am only bring it out when I'm like, okay, show me what you got. Like, am I ready to see this? I don't know.
We tend to incorporate that with people that need a little bit of an awakening. That's only going to happen through, a stern taskmaster. That's going to, you got nowhere to hide.
Show you some things
right.
About yourself that you can't run, you can't hide.
Yeah, it's definitely.
There's nowhere to go.
I would say, from my personal experience, it's a revealer of some very potent and powerful truths.
Yes.
That I have shielded myself from wanting to see and or acknowledge. But it's also an awesome stone to have that kind of like lightning bolt from on high to come down and blow up your third eye in a really very potent way.
Yes.
We don't pull that out with just anybody. So, there are those stones that are just like, oh, okay, maybe it's time for me to work with you again. I'm going to see what you're going to show me and what you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
It's always with once again, it always goes back to what do you feel guided to be working with, and to trust that. To trust it.
Yes, and keeping
a
dream journal and kind of keeping a log of what kind of dreams you're having with each stone is a great way to once again get to know the stones and get to know yourself.
Yeah. Nothing going wrong there.
I think we've already said this, but there are a lot of good books on stones and minerals out there. Pick one that resonates with you.
Yeah, you can visit our website to look at the books that we've listed that we recommend, and you're not going to get a bad one. You just have to go by what you feel guided on that.
Getting to know the composition and the properties, and when something comes from Brazil or it's only found in Madagascar, or I love that because I see the earth as one big beautiful consciousness. And of course, every spot on the earth is going to be special and unique, and it have its own vibrational frequency.
Completely.
And so when I think of these places, I love to think of the connection with the earth in that specific way. So I get real excited whenever and finding out where things come from.
Oh yeah. When you also have an understanding about where things actually come from, that's also going to help you in knowing when it comes time to buying stones if something that you're looking at may be real or maybe a lab, or you don't quite trust the validity of what it is being sold. This is kind of going into this other element of working with stones is how do you choose stones? How do you find minerals and crystals
I
from
think if you're just
reputable
starting
sources, you know?
Try your local rock shop.
You are never going to go wrong with trying your local rock shop, and pretty much every place is going to have one. Somewhere there's going to be some dude,
And
some
talk to the
woman
people there.
running.
See
right.
if they actually know their stones. I mean, most people that run a local rock shop are going to know a lot about stones.
They're going to know about it. They're going to,
and they may not believe or subscribe to the belief system that stones and minerals are used specifically for healing, but they will also, once you get to talk to them, as we have so many people, they know how they feel.
I feel good when I hold that rock. It makes me feel good. Well, there you go. That's the starting point. Yes, thank you. Rock people love nothing more than to talk about rocks. I mean, I can go into any rock shop anywhere and I will be there for hours because I'm going to, if the owner's there, whoever's there working that rock shop, they're very excited about getting to have this in their world on a regular basis. And some people who have rock shops are going to maybe be rock hounds themselves. That means they're going to go out into the field and dig and get these stones that they're adding, or
you may find out
Gus
about
over there and 2 towns over. He's always bringing me stuff. He finds these things and brings them over. The people in your local area are going to be also collecting and providing stones to those local rock shops. It's just a great resource to connect with people. I would also say if you really get into stones, join your local mineral and gemological society club. It's another great way to be around people who know a lot about minerals and crystals from the geological perspective, which is extremely beneficial when it comes time to buying stones. Mm-hmm. The more you know about minerals, of what you're interested in. Now, granted, there are tons of people that do nothing but collect. They're collectors. It's like Hank in Breaking Bad. They're minerals. Yes, they're minerals. But he just was a collector. Hank wasn't using those necessarily for healing, but who knows what they were doing to him, really. However,
he was in recovery.
But he was in recovery when he got addicted to the minerals.
Let's not forget about that. He had been shot up one side, down the other. He was paralyzed. And so, basically who knows?
Dead. We don't really know what the minerals were doing other than we know what the minerals were doing. Okay. So when you're getting involved, if you really like stones and you like doing this, you may even want to take it another step further and be like, I want to go dig for stones. I want to find a place to go. So for us, Oklahoma has some of the most pristine, amazing, finest quartz crystal on the planet. I'm speaking of my own personal experience.
Sadly, you're not going to find
But you're not going to find a quarry or a mine to be able to go dig that here in Oklahoma. However, right across the border, because the quartz beds don't end there at the state line, you got Arkansas. And in Arkansas, there is some of the most incredible, beautiful quartz crystal to ever be found on the planet. And you can go to a mine. It's digging into the side of the mountain. You're not going down under the ground, but you will find some local mom and pop mines that allow you to come in there with your coveralls and your bucket and your little
pickaxe.
Shovel and your pickaxe, and you can just go digging into that mountain all day long, and you may pull up all kinds of amazing things. You just don't know what you're going to find. Mm-hmm. It is very exciting to get to do that, and it's exciting to be able to be in that moment and have all this gratitude for Mother Earth for providing these minerals to be able to work with. So,
I mean, every state, every country, every area is going to have their
find
own
minerals
things
everywhere
that people rock on for.
If you're in Maine, guess
really
what?
Cool.
Good luck. You got access to all those pegmatites and tourmalines, some of the most incredible fluorites. There's not a place on the planet that doesn't have minerals. And when you know where something comes from, you know that mineral only occurs in a few places on the planet, and you see a seller that's trying to sell you something, calling it something that you know it doesn't ever come from there, then that's some good information to know. It's going to help you. Everybody should be knowledgeable about what to look for when it comes to buying stones. So you are an informed consumer and you're an informed collector, and you're going to know what you're getting is bona fide and real and true. There's all kinds of other little elements to look for. An excellent resource that we have listed on our website that I'm going to give to you. It's www.mindat.org. That's mindat.org. That is a beautiful, amazing website full of information on every mineral that is known and has been identified. And there's more new mineral discoveries all the time. This is an ever expanding field, actually. You can verify the location origin. You can verify and understand what is the hardness of a mineral. Is there really a stone that's going to have that inclusion in it? Whatever it is you're looking for, you're going to find it on MindDat.
We also sponsor the Tug to Pipe page on MindDat, because Tug to Pipe is truly our all-time favorite mineral, and we could do a whole show on Tug to Pipe.
We could do a whole show on Tug to Pipe.
Going to talk about it any more than that.
But stone of the most unconditional
we proudly
love.
Sponsor the Tug to Pipe page on MindDat.
And you know, if there's some mineral on there that you like, always look to see, because not everything has a sponsor, and it only helps MindDat. And we feel like what they're doing is really, really important, and we want to support that. We wanted to put our financial support and to also elevate Tug to Pipe, because we believe it's a really important mineral.
So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win for everybody. You know, when you're purchasing minerals and crystals, inevitably people are going to buy things online. There are lots of sellers on Instagram now. So you can always research and find some really wonderful people that are serious dealers collecting those minerals themselves, and they're selling them, or they're working directly with a mine, or they have those connections. So Instagram actually is a wonderful resource, I think, when it comes to buying stones. Once again, educate yourself before you buy something. Check that seller out. What's going on with what they're selling? There are imposter minerals out there. There are lots of things that are made in labs that are sold off as real and natural, especially with the rarer gems and minerals. So always look at the comments. Is it a trusted source? Always educate yourself to the best of your ability on understanding what it is you're buying, especially if you have a piece and you can't live without. You get into buying rare minerals, you're going to spend a few $100s on them. And you want to make sure what you're getting is real and that it is from a good source. You are going to come across terms that are going to describe specific qualities of stones. And when you see that, especially on an eBay listing, and people are talking about inclusions or chatoyancy, utilizing geological terms to describe things, for me personally, I take that as a good sign. This is somebody who knows rocks and minerals, and they're not describing it as a Lemurian crystal. Okay? There's a lot of people out there schlepping Lemurian crystals that are not Lemurian crystals. It's a specific type of quartz formation. And when people don't know what they're getting, they can pay a lot of money for something and not be what they thought it was going to be. So really check everything, especially when you're going to be spending a lot of money on something. Other than that, get out there and explore stones, minerals, support your local rock shops. Even if it's a metaphysical shop, a lot of metaphysical shops will have a lot of stones for sale and crystals, and maybe that's the only thing you got in your town. Go in there and check it out and just see what they have. Lithotherapy is a really huge topic for us, and there are so many aspects to it that we love discussing and having conversations about, and we cannot possibly encompass every aspect of that in a single episode. But I feel like we did cover a lot of the bases of what it is, how it works, where did it come from, how do I use it, and during these times that we are all living in, where our paradigms are shifting, we're creating new realities of what we want to be, it only is going to benefit all of us to be having these allies that have been here from the beginning for millions and millions, and in some cases, billions of years.
So your homework assignment, if you choose to accept it, if you're ready to make some magic in your life, is to find a stone and spend some time with it and keep a journal and sleep with it and pay attention to your dreams. Just see for yourself what kind of awesome, amazing benefits using stones has. And yeah, see for yourself.
Mhm. Well, it's the only way that anybody learns anything is through the doing. And for everybody to feel that they're creating their own relationship with stones and minerals, they have to embark upon that path themselves.
Yep.
It's not something that you can just read about. You have to do it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. As some people have experienced, we've talked for 4 hours, 5 hours
Longer
about
than that.
stones.
People have been held
Longer than
hostage one longer than that.
Been.
There was Stockholm syndrome beginning to set in, and then they crossed over.
Oh, they love
It happens after the glazing of the eyes. You've gone down a wormhole on the breastplate of Aaron.
And they were
You lost
and they
him.
really just wanted to know if we had a piece of red calcite.
I just wanted to know how to use rocks. Okay, well, we tried to do that. For you. As with all things, you can go to our website, BeTheLightRocks.com, and find all of these resources, links to the things we've talked about today that you can investigate on your own. And we are eternally grateful for each and every one of you. And we are so happy to be able to connect in this way. And we hope that you will join us again on our next episode.
Be the Light podcast is produced by Teal Hobson Lowther. Our amazing theme music was lovingly created by Frequency Jones. Visit our website, BeTheLightRocks.com. Stay woke, y'all, and use your stones.
But don't you wanna be? So don't you wanna be the light? You wanna be the light? Won't you come and see? Won't you wanna be in my life? You wanna be the light? So don't you wanna see? So don't you wanna be the light? You wanna be the light? Won't you come and see? Come and see. Won't you wanna be in my life? You wanna be the light. You wanna be the light. You wanna be the light.